There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Along with me, as always, Tim Dennis. We do have an update, Tim. We talked to Michael Anthony Gagliardi a few weeks ago about his book, Devil Take the Hindmost, the true story of a small boy and his 12-plus year survival with his demonically possessed mother. And that book is now out and available. We've added it to our Amazon page. So if you go to darknessradio.com, click on the store tab, then go into our Amazon store. We've got paranormal books, true crime books, paranormal gifts, paranormal things to watch. We've got it all there for you to find very easy. But that book, as we promised, we would let everybody know when it became available. It's out. It's available. So go check it out for yourself. And remember, all the news that you hear on today's program will be posted up at darknessradio.com under the news tab, so you can follow along. Instead of a regular theater of the mind today, we do have an interesting story of a near-death experience that we're going to share, and that'll be a little bit later in lieu. It's an amazing story, so I wanted to make sure that people could hear that. That will be a little bit later on in today's program. We've got your emails. We've got supernatural news from around the world. Let's start off with an email here. Hi, Dave and Tim. I came across your podcast a few months ago. Really enjoy it and love that you're in Minnesota. I was catching up on your old podcasts and heard that you had visited the Warden's House Museum, which is one of my favorite places to check out in town. I have always been fascinated and open to the paranormal world. And before I dig into the stories, I am a normal male in my late 40s who grew up in an old town 30 minutes east of St. Paul named Stillwater, Minnesota, right on the St. Croix River. Founded in 1848 before Minnesota was recognized as a state, this place is the poster child for historical places with an old prison, lumberyard relics, and Native American battle sites, just to name a few things. If you have seen the movies Beautiful Girls and Grumpier Old Men, that's my hometown. I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. I'm an adopted Korean male who has seen a ghost and a UFO, but not at the same time. But wouldn't that be something? I saw these with my adopted mom. Now, in 1985, when I was in 5th grade, we had just moved to Stillwater and lived north of town on a 10-acre hobby farm on the way to Marine on St. Croix, another historic village important to Minnesota's history. One night near dusk, my mom was working in the garden in front of me while I was playing hockey on the pavement in front of the garage. Our long gravel driveway was in front of my mom, and I noticed someone was slowly walking down it, coming our way. I asked my mom who it was since I hadn't met anyone yet, and she thought it was just a neighbor girl coming to say hi. As she approached us, I noticed that she was in period dress, wearing a long blue dress and had long hair. She was carrying books attached by a strap and brown boots. She looked about my age, but the thing is, I could see right through her. And she was not leaving any footprints in the gravel, but instead hovering over it. She kept staring right ahead and passed right by us as if we weren't even there. This must be a residual ghost. And it walked past the barn into the backfield where it disappeared. My mom and I looked at each other and I said, "Did you?" And she said, "Did you?" And with that, I took off into the house, locking my mom outside. There was an old settlement in the backfield near the river, and our house was across the street from the old Arcola schoolhouse from the 1800s. I'm currently starting to research the history of this old house and the schoolhouse as well. And from then on, I would turn every light on in the house and grab my dad's machete whenever I was home alone. Now, for the UFO story. Again, only seen with my mom for some reason. During one summer night of my senior year in high school, I was waiting for my girlfriend to get off of work and come over, so it was about 8 p.m. My mom was outside on the patio with the dog sitting in the chair, just looking at the stars, when she told me to grab the binoculars and check out what was on the horizon on the Wisconsin side of the river. I looked, and right above the horizon was what looked to be a small hot air balloon rising up from the ground. I just thought it was a weather balloon because I could see it was being propelled by flames up into the balloon itself. As we continued to watch, now she's still outside, I'm now inside looking out the big bay windows, when the balloon turns into a solid green colored triangle. The green was the piercing color of the green go on a stoplight. It quickly rose into the air and then broke into 3 smaller green triangles. My jaw dropped. The 3 triangles then proceed to do these weird patterns in the sky, zipping from one end of the sky to the other in seconds. This went on for about 18 minutes. I timed it on the microwave clock. And then, without warning, it reformed into one solid green triangle, then back into the balloon shape before it disappeared. Then my girlfriend Julie arrived to see us hysterically recanting the story. Finally, I was a camp director with the YMCA for 20 years, and the last camp I worked was at the west of Minneapolis on Lake Independence. It was a smaller camp, only about 40 acres, but it had a deep history of being built on Native American land, or so I was told. One of the cabins, Blackfoot, happened to be Cabin 13, and I heard wild stories about it, especially that particular cabin, from former and current staff members. Now remember, after seeing what I saw growing up, I totally believed in it. During summer camp, I was told by a counselor staffer that a girl with long dark hair would be seen standing at the foot of campers' beds at night. A couple of incidents while I was there piqued my memory, but there were so many more. In the fall and spring, camp was a conference center. There was a local private school that had held retreats there for over 40 years, and my last year there, I was hosting them and making sure all the cabins were good to go. One of their security guards accompanied them to camp and was staying alone in Blackfoot. The next morning at breakfast, I see him, and he's white as a ghost and didn't look like he had slept. I asked if he was okay, and he said, "Josh, I need you to believe what I'm about to tell you. Last night when I was falling asleep, I saw 2 dark shadows cross the room in front of me. I then heard in a low, slow, guttural whisper, 'Get out,' and heard scratches on the furnace next to me. I'm a 60-year-old man who has seen a lot of things, but I slept with the lights on that night. After breakfast, I went and looked at the furnace, and there were 3 long individual scratches in the newly replaced furnace metal plate. In the winter months at camp, living there alone, I had my now 11-year-old yellow lab Indy with me, thank God. It would freak me out when we would walk at night near Blackfoot Cabin. One night, when I was the only one there, we were on a walk near the summer office with Blackfoot Cabin directly to my right, about 30 feet away, when the hairs on Indy's back go up, and he's staring at the cabin in an aggressive stance. I turn and I look to see the lights of the cabin begin to flicker on, then off, then on, and then off again. I know that all of the doors of the buildings are locked and there are no footprints in the snow on the path. So I freaked out and I hauled ass, nearly beating my own dog back to the house. Picture Shaggy carrying Scooby-Doo. I recently lost my mom. She lets us know she's around from time to time, and I'm curious about your thoughts with me being an adopted child and having a higher spiritual or paranormal connection with my non-biological mom, and the two of us seeing what we saw together. Was it just being the only ones home at the time, or something unexplainable? I love the podcast. Keep up the great work, and if you're in Stillwater again, let me buy you guys a cup of coffee at the Daily Grind downtown. That comes from Josh. Listen, Josh, we've mentioned it before on the show. Blood does not a family make. You have a bond with your mom. She loved you. You loved her. There's a connection. And as we've talked over the last few weeks, especially on our Thursday shows, the live shows, Friday podcast, we make these bonds with one another, whether we're related to them or not. And you share moments and emotions and feelings with someone, and you spiritually connect to them. So yes, for you and your mom to share that doesn't need to be blood. It could just be that you were both vibrationally in tune. You were both together, and that's what allowed you to see these things. I mean, there's no hard and fast answer, but I would say that would be it. But don't question the fact that you don't understand it because there was no blood bond. Blood bonds are strong, but they're not always the only kind of bond there is. But thank you very much for sharing your story.
And also, Josh, it could be, too, if you believe in past lives, I don't know if you do or not, that your mom at one time was part of your soul family or is part of your soul family. And that connection could be easily explained that way, too.
Good point. Good point. And speaking of Minnesota, explained or unexplained. Inside Minnesota's recent UFO sightings, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, says most sightings have an explanation, but there are some that don't. The story comes to us from Golden Valley, Minnesota. Unidentified flying objects, UFOs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, whatever acronym you or the government like to use, they fascinate people. Now, a recent Pentagon report admitting to UAPs has people talking once again about what's going on in our skies. None of this is new to Tom Mayer, the Minnesota director of the Mutual UFO Network. We are a nonprofit organization, said Mayer. We are private citizens, and we collect UFO reports and investigate sightings. MUFON was created in 1969, the same year as the United States Air Force closed its UFO investigation unit called Project Blue Book. In Minnesota, some 80 volunteers meet monthly, assigning and investigating anywhere from 6 to 20 newly reported local UFO claims a month. There's people like there's no evidence at all, and well, have you looked, said Mayer. And that's exactly what they do. They look. Last year, MUFON Minnesota completed 103 UFO sighting investigations. Of them, 3 were identified as hoaxes, 53 were explainable objects like planets or small aircraft, and the rest lacked enough data or were simply unexplainable. So far this year, the group has received 45 sightings, and they've received access to them. Here are a few of the most intriguing. MUFON Minnesota case 112517 is going down currently as explainable. Polk County, a dog appears to be chasing a green orb on the prairie grass. Fortunately, some sightings are easily explainable. Here, investigators determined that sunlight reflecting off the camera lens produced this otherworldly blue-green orb on the ground. And that's a great point, folks. If you ever see these strange light orbs, these blue or green or sometimes even red and pink, notice where the position of the sun or a bright light is in the room. And if you see it's in conjunction with that, you're most likely getting that refraction or reflection. If you lower the camera and take the sun out, would that then still leave the ball of light? So something to consider. MUFON Minnesota case 112704. Lino Lakes, Minnesota, had a pulsating light reported over a neighbor's house. The investigator concluded it was a star. MUFON Minnesota suggests autokinesis is at play. That's where stationary objects can sometimes appear to move. MUFON Minnesota case 115193, also believed to be explained. Shot in Matomidi, a video shows a string of 20-plus star-like figures moving in a straight line. Now, this has, of course, become a more common sighting and quite explainable, according to Mar. When someone says there's 30 or 40 in a row overhead going in a straight line, look to SpaceX. Just launched a bunch of satellites, and it's a pretty good chance. So we go and check it out and line it up and go, yep, we are pretty certain that's what it was. They are compelling. They are interesting, but it's Elon Musk again throwing us off, said Mayer or Maher. MUFON Minnesota case 115001. This still remains unexplained. A husband and wife delivering newspapers in Faribault around 3 a.m. shot a hovering disc of lights. The MUFON report suggests the object was 3 to 5 miles from the witnesses. The event lasted a few minutes before the flying object disappeared from the area. The MUFON investigator concluded after analyzing the cell phone footage and the picture of the craft, in my opinion, that the evidence is genuine and no obvious signs of a hoax or some other natural explanation can be found. The disposition is unknown. So, Faribault, how far is that from Mystic Lake Casino?
Let me pull it up here. Let's see here.
I think it's pretty far. But the image looks like that light circle that the teepee lights create in the sky over Mystic Lake Casino. I'm wondering if
Faribault is, let's see, in which direction. Okay, so, well, Faribault is probably, it's directly south of Lakeville and to the east. I got to say it's probably about 45 miles to the east.
Oh, so that would be plainly out of view then of Mystic Lake Casino.
Yeah.
Because you have to get kind of close to Mystic Lake in order to see this. But it has that same look, almost identical look in the sky. So I don't know if maybe they well, no, they said they were delivering newspapers in Faribault, so they know where they were. I don't know. Now, the next one, MUFON Minnesota case 115474, is currently in progress of being examined. In St. Paul, a tight formation of lights that do not appear to match the path of SpaceX satellites. The investigation is in progress. Now, what's interesting is, looking at this, my wife Winnie noticed it kind of looks like letters, and we reversed the picture. And the back end looks like it could be 3M. And in doing a little research ourselves, it looks like the Goodyear blimp was flying over recently for the 3M championship golf deal that was going on. So that might make sense, and especially if the Goodyear blimp was, scrolling something about 3M on the side of it. The picture itself is reversed, which can kind of throw you off. But I don't know. To me, I would agree. I think it looks like writing on a blimp.
Well, that's the one that Yoko got confused about. I think the 3M championship golf tournament.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but again, they don't give a specific date of what this is. But again, I could be wrong, but the way the picture looks, it looks like that lighting that you see scroll across the Goodyear blimp.
Yeah.
MUFON Minnesota case 115314, also in progress. This one's a little bit more interesting. In LeSueur County, another tube of flashing lights appeared to move at a very high rate of speed. So some definite interesting videos and photographs have been taken. I like the fact that they are taking a look at these things and debunking them. I'm always surprised by the ones that turn out to be a planet or something in the sky, because to me it always seems like, how do you know that? How do you not recognize that as a planet? But again, if you're not an outdoor person and you're not out looking at the sky at night, you may not be familiar. And sometimes the planets can look quite big hovering in the sky at night. Mm-hmm. And if they're in any kind of special alignment, it may just be something you wouldn't recognize on the normal. Let me see. Oh, and following that story up.
And two, a lot of times, like if you watch your local news, they'll tell you, you'll be able to see such and such planet in the sky tonight. And if you're not a huge news watcher, you wouldn't know that you'd be able to see, like tonight you'll be able to see Mars in the night sky, or tonight you'll be able to see this in the night sky. And a lot of people will call into MUFON or call into somewhere and say, I can see this tonight, or is there, and it'll be something unusual, and that'll throw a lot of people off too.
Exactly. So do pay attention to those things and check the news, Google it before you worry, and see if there's anything else that might be flying over your area. We're going to continue on with another story from KARE 11 here in Minnesota. UFOs, again, are getting a ton of attention lately after the recent Pentagon report admits unexplained aerial phenomena that the government just can't explain. It turns out what's widely believed to be among the most significant UFO sightings ever happening took place right here in Minnesota. The date was August 27th, 1979 in Warren, Minnesota, about 20 miles from the North Dakota border. Marshall County Sheriff's Deputy Val Johnson was on patrol early in the morning on Highway 5 when he saw a bright light to the south on Highway 220. Johnson thought maybe a crashed semi or downed plane as he approached it. He said the light instantly jumped through the windshield, hitting him like a 200-pound pillow, and it knocked him out. His reaction was preserved in the actual radio call to dispatch when he awoke. And this is not the original recording, but this is the transcript. Dispatch operator, 407, what's your condition? Deputy Johnson, I don't know. Something just hit my car. Dispatch, what's your condition? Are you okay? Johnson, something attacked my car. I heard the glass breaking and the locks. The brakes locked up. I don't know what's going on. Now, according to the sheriff's office investigation reports, Johnson's wristwatch and the clock of the 1977 Ford Limited Cruiser stopped working for 14 minutes. Johnson said his teeth were fractured at the gum line and his eyes burned. My eyes were extremely painful, as if I'd been subjected to something like an arc welder burn or something, said Johnson during an interview on the 1980 TV show That's Incredible. His story and injuries mystified the nation. But there's another piece of evidence that still brings the curious to the Marshall County Historical Society Museum. The squad car, with the damage and all. This is the big thing they come to see, said Sherilyn Meyer, director of the Marshall County Historical Society, while showing us the actual damage to the squad car. Whatever hit him started with a broken headlight, and up here there is a weird dent on the top of the hood. It broke the windshield, hit the reflector, and bent both of the antenna. The sheriff's office back in 1979 brought out experts from Honeywell and Ford Motor Company to examine this strange damage. I've not seen anything like this before, said Ford crash investigator Meridian French in That's Incredible show. They're extremely unusual. Dennis Brecky, the Marshall County sheriff at the time, said he took Johnson at his word. I feel that whatever Val told me about that light and that strange incident was true. I don't doubt Val in any way, said Brecky in the video. The sheriff tried other means to get an answer as to what happened to Johnson. Investigative documents show he reached out to Alan Hendry, chief investigator with the Center for UFO Studies. The biggest mystery about the Val Johnson case is trying to find one neat explanation for something that could behave the way he described, yet create the kind of damage that we discovered, said Hendry in That's Incredible report. No one in 42 years has been able to explain what happened, including Johnson himself. Now, upon reflection, we've come to the conclusion that perhaps the Creator has made other things we can't readily see or readily identify. And perhaps this is one of those things we encountered on the road, said Johnson to a studio audience during That's Incredible. So where's Deputy Johnson today? People in Warren said he moved away and stopped doing interviews on this a while ago. Now, KARE 11 searched online and found an address for Val Johnson, so we drove there, and it turns out it was the right man. We spoke with him for 20 minutes, but he did not want to go on record because of the stress and attention this has caused his family for a very long time. He did, however, permit us to pass on the notion that he hopes these new UFO sightings and government reports might give people a brand new perspective on the story. Again, this is up and available. You can see it at darknessradio.com. Click on the news tab to find more information. And if that's not enough for you, Tim, right here in our own backyard, many UFO sightings and one very historic one. There's been a Bigfoot sighting 2 hours north of St. Cloud that took place Monday night. How about that? Minnesota had a reported Bigfoot sighting. The Minnesota Bigfoot Research Team is a group of like-minded individuals that work together in proving the existence of Sasquatch and Bigfoot. They've been featured on Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot and even host an annual conference for people to gather and share information on Bigfoot in Minnesota. On Monday, July 26th, the team was notified of a possible Bigfoot sighting near Remmer, Minnesota, which just so happens to be the town that claims to be the home of the creature. New Bigfoot sighting outside of Remmer, Minnesota last night, 7/26/21, about 9:15 p.m. Road crossing driver was heading east. Creature was seen in the middle of the road and went north. Driver got approximately 300 to 400 yards away before it moved to the north. They assume that it's about 10 feet tall, the semi-truck driver said, and black in color. Sunset's around 8:50 p.m. this time of year, so there would still be enough daylight to spot a creature. But 300 to 400 yards, that's a long way off. If something appeared to be 10 feet tall from that distance, it must have been huge. This is just the most recent sighting in an area that could be considered a Bigfoot hotspot in the state. One of the most notorious sightings from the area in recent years was a trail cam photo from October 2009. Tim Kredowski thought that the picture taken on his hunting land north of Remmer was a buddy messing with him, but after checking found that no one even knew that the camera had been set up. This 2009 sighting wasn't the only one in the area. Cass County has had multiple sightings over the years, according to the Bigfoot Researchers Organization. So, was Bigfoot hanging around the town that claims to be its home this week? You can be the judge. So check it out. Minnesota is suddenly the hotspot for motherships and monsters.
Oh, great.
I don't know. I don't know what's bringing them to our door. Maybe it's your milkshake, Tim.
More stuff to hit on the way to St. Cloud when I go to do my shift.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, guys, you and Tim keep me company on my daily walks. Thank you. I've lived at the same location, a quiet, safe neighborhood now for over 4 years, and I never felt the way I did today. I was listening to your April 8th episode, The Miracle Collectors, with Joan Hill and Katie Mahan. I was thinking that I believe in miracles, but I'm not sure I've ever experienced one. And then the following miracle happened. I had just turned around at the top of a hill and was retracing my steps on my way home. A bit in front of me, a white van with tinted windows stopped at the curb where there wasn't a stoplight or a stop sign. A voice inside my head told me to stop, not to go any further, and hide. I hid behind a tree in the apartment complex I had been passing. From my hiding place, I could see the driver get out and rummage through junk in the back of his van. It was a mess back there, and I could tell he wasn't really straightening up. He closes the back of the van and gets back into the driver's seat only to jump back out a second time and repeat his actions. Once again, he's not really organizing the contents in the back of his van. Then he drives away, first doing a U-turn, which led him back to the main road. As I viewed him from my hiding place, I got such an awful feeling of pure evil. Had I not hidden, I think he would have abducted me, assaulted me, perhaps killed me, quite possibly. Today, someone or something was looking out for me and saved my life. And that comes from Lisa from Louisville, Texas. And I don't mind if you tell all or part of my story on the air. Well, that's good, Lisa, because we've just done that right now. Just did it. There's nothing you can do about it at this point. So na. Let's see what else we've got going here. This is one of the most bizarre pieces of footage I have seen in a long time. And Tim, I'm going to shoot this over to you. And especially the source from which it came is really interesting. Let me switch here so I can send this video link over to you. And you can kind of give it a gander whilst we talk. Or maybe not. I don't know. All of a sudden, Fache Book is deciding it just doesn't want anything to do with me, and it's rearranging my entire system. So let me shut that down and reboot it, and I will tell you a little bit more about it in just a few seconds. But again, this is one of those pieces of footage that jumped out. All right, there's the video. I just sent it over to you, Tim. All right. This is a creepy moment. An apparent poltergeist slams a security guard into the wall and drags him along the floor in terrifying CCTV footage. The phantom attack took place in a council office while guards were patrolling at night, claims the mayor of a small mountain city in Colombia. So this is the mayor posting this. Mayor of Armenia, Jose Rios Morales, went on to do an exorcism in the council offices. A security guard is seen walking along the middle of the corridor before suddenly veering to the side and slamming against a wall as if being hit by a supernatural force, claims the mayor of Armenia, Jose Manuel Rios Morales. The man remaining on the floor where he appears to be struggling with an invisible foe pulling him. At the end of the clip, 2 other security guards appear on the scene to help the terrified colleague. The spooked mayor now has announced he is bringing in a bishop and other religious leaders to do an exorcism in the offices to rid it of any unwanted phantoms. Rios Morales said, "I want to share this video with you today, emphasizing that as mayor, I have the conviction that faith has insurmountable power. I want to give everyone a little peace of mind and let them know that in the company of the bishop and other religious leaders, we will bring God's blessing to every corner of the workplace. We ask for respect and a union in prayer, but we assure you that nothing can steal our peace and tranquility because We are protected by the hand of our Lord. It's unclear when the holy men will arrive at the offices to tackle the aggressive spooks. Commenting on the mayor's announcement, one resident said, "At least now they can say it's the ghost who is embezzling from the mayor." Another said, "Yeah, that ghost is looking for his pension just like the rest of us." Another agreed, "What clowns? How much money are they chucking at this ridiculous absurdity?" More chimed in, "Oh no, maybe the mayor will just have to resign before that ghost comes after him. The city needs a governor, not an exorcist." So the people seem to be not as thrilled with this as the mayor, but he seems interested in getting the answer. And that video is pretty compelling.
You're not going to like this, Cut. I'm going to tell you, as a guy who's had to take a couple of bumps in IWI, I think there's something fishy about this.
Really?
Yep. I'll tell you where. Okay, so when he goes to take because there is a bit of shine from the doorway.
Right.
When he goes to take the fall into the wall, it looks like he's almost tripping himself when he goes into the wall, but it's more telling when he goes onto the floor, because if you notice, his left arm pulls him towards the center of the floor, and he's using himself to scoot himself across the floor. You got to watch it carefully because they repeat it twice, and I've watched the video now twice as you were reading. But he does scoot himself across the floor. He does it very slyly. And a lot of times, like when and this is where that whole, as you might say, bullshit wrestling stuff comes in handy. There's a way that wrestlers put themselves into position while they're laying on the mat to get themselves ready to have somebody jump off the top rope. This guy did it.
I wonder if it's one of those deals where he did trip, maybe he banged into something, hurt himself, because I've done that, and then you kind of scoot yourself around like,
right.
Ow, 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 ow.
Yep.
So maybe I could kind of see that. Go check it out for yourself, folks.
Check it out for
yourself. Your thoughts are. Go to darknessradio.com, click on the news tab. You'll find all the information there. We put up the news every week. Sometimes it's a little late, but today it's up and available for you, so go check it out. But we always do put up the news. So if you want to catch up on any of the news stories, see the video, photographs, anything that we've talked about in the prior week, it's always there for you. Here's an interesting tale. This one's bizarre as well. Brothers Reese and Jamie Brosnan of Stroud and Gillingham have avoided jail. Well, Dave, this sounds like a true crime story, not necessarily paranormal. Well, be patient, folks. Let me get to it. Terrifying brothers who tormented children in a warped exorcism ritual have somehow avoided jail. One victim was discovered pinned to a bed, so horrified her hair was matted, and she was drenched in sweat when the police swooped in. Paranormal obsessed Reese and Jamie Brosnan, 31 and 20, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of child cruelty earlier this year. The duo have now been handed suspended prison sentences for terrorizing their victims, who cannot be named for legal reasons. This all happened during a 3-hour ordeal. A judge labeled their actions entrenched, wrong-headed beliefs in the paranormal after hearing the men become convinced evil spirits were attempting to overcome their victims. Prosecutors told police how they were called after people heard wailing in what sounded like some sort of exorcism. Both Brosnans believed some sort of paranormal was happening, and the children were under the hold of the devil or some kind of demon, barrister Natalie Carter added. They were acting in a bizarre manner because of their beliefs. This happened over a period of time of several hours, she continued. Texts from Reese showed him talking of things flying off walls, plates being smashed. The court heard Jamie also dialed 999, which is the equivalent of 911 here in the United States, where he told one call operator the children kept switching bodies, while the call handler could hear screaming going on in the background. Officers rushed to the scene to find Reese pinning down one victim with his leg while the door had been barricaded. Following their arrest, the pair admitted taking cocaine. Hard to believe drugs were involved in this story. Former prison worker Reese told officers he was trying to protect the children by fending off evil spirits, a sentiment echoed by Premier Inn worker Jamie, who added the children were definitely possessed. The court heard one victim still suffers from night terrors following this ordeal. Recorder David Jeremy, QC, told the brothers, "Your victims were quite simply absolutely terrorized. Because of the entrenched matter of your views, there is nothing the probation service can do in the way of rehabilitation. Mitigating Stephen Mold argued the incident was a one-off, and the brothers of previous good character had washed their hands completely of cocaine. Jamie of Carlisle Close, Strood, was handed 12 months custody, suspended for 18 months, and Reese of Beeching's Way, Twiddall, who sat in a wheelchair throughout the hearing, was sentenced to an 18-month tariff, suspended for 18 months. So very strange. So because it's part of their religious beliefs, and because they've had no past interactions and have promised to lay off the devil's dandruff, they're free. But, here's the weird thing. Again, this is where you have to look at, if there was a possession going on, how weird would it look? And if you thought you were helping, what would it look like to others? That's what I always get a kick out of horror movies, when you see them go to battle with these things. And what's the aftermath? I always want to see the movie aftermath of everybody trying to clear up the mess that's happened. And how do you deal with it as a quote unquote possession? Because, a good portion of the population won't believe that that's what actually took place. That's but true. How bizarre would it look if, in fact, there was a possession of multiple children taking place?
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder if the cop showed up on site and you had a priest and a couple of people with a mop and a bucket, and you've got somebody shackled to a bed, what exactly they would say if they didn't know that something legitimate was going on. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Man.
Very weird. We've got a haunted Playboy Mansion story, haunted hotels, and we're going to talk about J.J. Abrams' new UFO docuseries that will explore the 2006 O'Hare Airport sighting, which I'm really excited about talking about, real-life Star Wars, and more, plus a near-death experience as a theater of the mind, if you will, this week. When we return, you're listening to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the program. This is Darkness Radio, the best in paranormal podcasting. You can hear us here every week. Hey, this Thursday, we have a live show. Cameron Pasha will be joining. We're going to talk about the jinn and his work, including exorcisms performed by his Sufi order in Africa in recent days. He'll also talk about how the jinn, interdimensional beings, may be responsible for a lot of paranormal phenomena, from Bigfoots to UFOs. Is it Bigfoots, big feet, all the way to UFOs? He also has some other interesting stories he's going to talk about in his world of examining the supernatural, the paranormal. I had a chance to meet Cameron recently in person. He's been a longtime listener of the show. He is a screenwriter, producer, and an investigator. So we'll be discussing that live Thursday night, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. That's 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So make sure you tune in for that. We'll take your questions, regale you with strange tales of the supernatural and dealing with the jinn. That's this Thursday night. The episode will appear as a podcast-only form on Friday for those of you that listen to the show. And again, I want to remind you, subscribe to Stitcher Premium to get all of our shows commercial free, all of Darkness Radio, all of our True Crime Tuesday shows, and all of the great shows underneath the umbrella of Stitcher Premium. Hundreds of thousands of hours, every type of topic you could ever consider is available. So go subscribe for as little as $5 a month. Use code word Darkness Radio, all one word, for some pretty substantial discounts for your first year subscribing to that. So again, if you want to cut up the commercials from these shows, go subscribe to Stitcher Premium. Use code word Darkness Radio, all one word. If you don't mind listening to the commercials and you want to continue with the free program, it will be available for you free here. We've been releasing True Crime Tuesday every Tuesday free as well, without the dumb crime, stupid criminals aspect. That is still part of the premium package over on Stitcher, but you can hear the interviews regarding True Crime Tuesday every Tuesday here on the program, so make sure you check that out. Let's get back to it. We've got more stories to share. We've got more emails. We've got more news stories from around the world. Let's go to another email. Hi, Dave and Tim. I was just listening to your Time Shift podcast, and I wanted to thank you for the comment you made about CSI and the technology and results not being how it's presented on the shows. As a crime scene investigator and latent print examiner, and paranormal investigator as well, it says in parentheses, I'm often told by members of the public how inept I am at my job because what I'm doing does not mimic what they saw on CSI. So thank you for sticking up for us in the forensic community. The simple act of saying that's not how it works means a great deal to those of us who always hear, but that's how they do it on CSI. And that is true, folks. Listen, I've been a victim of a horrific crime. I've had friends that have been victims of horrific crimes. We would all like justice to work like it does on TV. It doesn't. It's flash and dazzle. They have to wrap up a story in 60 minutes. So there's going to be some leaps and jumps in logic in order to wrap that up in science. And I think we're going to get to the point where you see a lot of that. But at this point, even local police stations don't always communicate with one another. So it's hard to get information, 5 seconds after you scan it into your computer base. But hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to become even more easy for them to access. And maybe we will start to see it catching up to what we watch on television. Remember, Star Trek is the innovator for the cell phone and many of the different projects and products that exist out in the marketplace now, because people saw it, they were inspired by it, and they wanted to create something like that would work. Don't believe me? Look at the communicators and look at the original flip phone. How many times did you flip your flip phone open and do the sound, Tim? Come on.
Never.
Baloney. Maybe it was just me. Anyway, we go back. He says, also, I've been seeing a new trend that is emerging through TikTok about Grabovoi codes and utilizing these codes as Cliff Note versions of manifesting certain things within your life. I'm not sure if you have briefly covered Grabovoi codes in a previous show, but I would love to hear a show about the history of these codes, the positives, the negatives, and if anyone has experimented with using these codes. I've never even heard of them. Have you heard of these? Grabovoi, Grabovoi?
No, be honest with you.
Mm-mm. Yeah. What I have read so far, the origin of these codes comes from a man named Grigory Grabovoi, who was a Russian doctor of mathematics who claimed to be a healer, among other things, being heavily immersed in the field of the paranormal. This is the first I've actually heard of the Grabovoi codes. Maybe I'm not as immersed as I thought. Well, neither are we. Apparently, we've been doing this 16 years. Love the podcast and the Holzer Files, and especially all the joy and love you guys showed everyone through your honest and caring nature and through all the wonderful photos you guys share of your families. Thank you for all you do. You are both appreciated. Thank you. Light and love. And that comes from Tracy. Well, Tracy's iPhone, according to this email.
Evidently, it's a big thing on TikTok.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm on TikTok now. I just haven't figured out exactly how to use it.
It says here, I just grabbed something real quick on manifestandflow.com. I know I'm pimping out a different website here. They're the cheat codes of the universe and can be used to manifest money, love, health, healing, almost anything. And that there's hundreds of these codes out there. Interesting.
All right. I just typed that in so I can look it up after the show so I can find the Grabovoi code for more hair and more money.
Yeah.
More hair on top of my head, not out of my nose and ears. I got that covered.
Evidently, you can combine them with crystals.
Really?
Yeah, to manifest money.
Interesting.
Yep. You can write down your manifestations in a journal with them. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's at this manifestandflow.com, you can go to it after the show and just to your heart's desire. There's different ways to use these codes to, I guess, kind of combine it all. I guess it's the new secret. There you go.
Interesting. We'll have to look into that. I know we're doing another show, and actually with a pretty learned man. I've got to get more information on it. I'm waiting to hear back about the power of intention and how we can use it to heal ourselves. And I wonder if he's familiar with the Grabovoi codes. So we'll have to touch base with him on that when we do the interview, hopefully in the next week or two. All right. As promised, the Playboy Mansion is haunted. At least that's what Hugh Hefner's ex-girlfriends claim. Former Playboy models Holly Madison and Bridget Marquardt, who are both ex-girlfriends of founder Hugh Hefner, believe the Playboy Mansion is, in fact, haunted. Madison and Marquardt appeared as guests in the last Thursday's episode of the Discovery Plus series Ghost Adventures, where they talked about their spooky encounters in the famous 29-bedroom mansion. On the day the episode aired, Nylon also published an interview story detailing the two models' experiences while living with Hefner on the property in the 2000s. You definitely felt the nostalgia and old energy, Marquardt said, of the 5.3-acre mansion situated in the affluent Holmby Hills in Los Angeles. I had little things happen. You know, it's right, like, I think it's around the corner from Gene Simmons' house.
Oh, yeah.
Which is no surprise that he lives a block away from the Playboy mansion. Shannon Tweed, his wife, was a former Playboy model and actress.
Yep.
Marquardt went on to say that sometimes TV channels or the volume would randomly change. She also opened up about that one time she had seen a woman standing in the doorway of her closet looking into her room. She gasped and turned for a better view, only to find out that the woman had disappeared. Now, according to Marquardt, the woman was very pale and very thin and had long, black, stringy hair. She was wearing a white T-shirt that was too big on her and black acid washy jeans. She was more modern day, and I feel like I recognized who she was, the girl next door star said. Marquardt said the ghost might be the spirit of Joni, a staff member who helped the women staying in the mansion and took care of the pets in the house. Joni died of cancer before Marquardt moved in. There was a new pet in the house, and she was just seeing what was going on. I think it was a loving thing but it's scary because it was shocking, she said further. Now, Holly Madison, who lived in the mansion as Hefner's girlfriend from 2001 to 2008, also had her full share of paranormal experiences. While in the basement gym, she reportedly saw a woman coming out of the bathroom and then crossing in front of her and then out of her line of vision. According to Madison, the woman looked modern, wore a hot pink sports bra paired with a pair of black workout pants, making her look like a playmate doing photo tests. Madison walked around the corner to check where the woman had gone and saw another door. Thinking the woman might have come that way, she opened it, but to her surprise, she found it was actually a closet. It was then she realized the woman had vanished. The ghosts of the Playboy Mansion were also featured in The Girls Next Door Season 1, Episode 10, in which Marquardt hired a paranormal investigator and medium to do a seance in the mansion. The investigator reportedly found high levels of paranormal energy in various parts of the house, particularly in Marquardt's room. Ghost Adventures follows the, of course, paranormal investigations of Zach Bagans and his team of experts as they explore haunted locations. You can catch that episode on Discovery Plus. And we do have the video up on our site. If you go to the news stories and find this one, you can see the Girls Next Door Season 1, Episode 10 is part of that article. So you can hear them talk about the ghosts of the mansion and see that story for yourself.
So now the Playboy Mansion is now owned by Darren Metropoulos. And it underwent renovations in 2020. Mm-hmm. So if you thought it was haunted before, that thing has got to be crawling with ghosts now.
You think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I got
all the renovation, all the shaking of stuff up, or what?
I got to think with all the stuff that's been overturned in there, even in the last year, that whatever was settled in there has got to be. It'd be interesting to see what stories that the workers in there have. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be. I've talked to a couple of people that claim to have worked there at one point or another, and I've heard the little stories of things missing, and occasionally people walking around the corner. And listen, there's been a lot of tragedy associated with Playboy, former playmates, from Dorothy Stratton to Marilyn Monroe, right, and other employees, I'm sure, that have died. And Hugh Hefner's death. I wonder if he's haunting the halls at the mansion now.
I gotta think he is.
Well, or maybe he's in heaven enjoying himself. Well, folks, in lieu of Theater of the Mind this week, I heard a very interesting story. Jose Hernandez sharing his near-death experience. He's an atheist, and what happens to him shook his paradigm. Let's go ahead and give that story a listen.
When I had my experience, I was a true atheist. I didn't believe in any kind of religion. I didn't believe in anything. I thought this was all foo-foo. I am an engineer. I was up on a bucket truck. We were running some electrical lines. We were running late. We started to kind of try to hurry up. We decided, I'm going to stay up on the bucket. We're not going to go up and down. And you just be careful with the trees and navigate delicately. The guy that was with me, my partner, was more worried about electrocuting me up on top. So he was more worried about looking up, and he just kind of bumped into a tree. I hit the bucket and I broke all my ribs on my right side. I was sent to an emergency room, of course. There was some issues with my ribs. They weren't healing properly. I was sitting in the emergency room waiting, and I know the nurse said, "Here, if you need anything, push this button." And I sat on that bed, and I was really struggling to breathe at one point. I thought about pushing the button, but because I grew up in the South Bronx and we're supposed to be these tough men, I said, no, I could manage this. I could get through this. I always do. I waited about 45 minutes. And when I finally pushed the button, the nurse came in and she just looked at me and she just hit the cold blue. That was the beginning of my experience of dying. And I had a series of emotions because I was suffocating, so it was kind of slow. I'll tell you what my first emotion was. When everybody ran into the room, my first emotion was shame. It just stripped me down so quickly that I just felt shame. After I had that sense of shame, I started to feel, what if this is real? What if something's really happening here? And what's going to happen to my family? Because I never expected anything like this, so you're totally unprepared. And I'm thinking, how are they going to manage? And that created a tremendous lump. I started thinking about God. You know what? If you get me through this event, I will change. I'll change my way of being. I'll be a better person. You won't regret it, kind of thing. I'm waiting. Nothing happens. And then I felt this sense of anger. Like I knew he wasn't real. And then I got this tremendous sense of fear. And because I thought when I die, there's nowhere for me to go, I didn't believe in anything, that I would just be shut off like a light bulb and just turn into nothingness. So I became very fearful, and I wanted so badly to ask somebody to hold my hand. And then I started thinking, well, I can't ask for help because my father would be ashamed of me because I'm supposed to be tough. I gotta tough this out. So I stiffened and I waited for death. I started to hear the IB, and it sounded like raindrops hitting on a tin roof. So it was like splash, splash, splash. I looked at the wallpaper, and I'll never forget this because my eyes were so acute that I could see the grain in the wallpaper. And there's this sense of wonder happening within me at the same time as I'm dying and I'm scared. Terrified might be a better word. And then I noticed this shadow by the door, and it just stood there. And then I started thinking, you know what? I've had such a hard and difficult life. Maybe it's okay to kind of let go. Maybe there's no shame in this. I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up. I'm just realizing that there's nothing I could do to stem this chain of events, right? I can't stop it. I kind of said, it's okay. It's okay to die. And the minute I said that, or thought that, this shadow just moved. And it just moved around everybody in that room. And in my mind, I could see its hand reaching out to me, and it just touched my toe. And the minute it touched my toe, I just felt this tremendous sense of relief and relaxation and peace and love and calm. And I wasn't struggling to breathe anymore. I was in bliss. And I felt this breeze, this really warm breeze just blowing. And I visualized, because I got long hair, I'm thinking, wow, my hair must be blowing. This breeze, this is kind of like amazing. And then I felt myself kind of being lifted until I found myself in the corner of the room. And I was observing the effort by the CPR team, the group that was there trying to save my life. And I looked at them and I could see there was a doctor right over me, just pumping, pumping, pumping. And I could see there was a lot of stress in her face. And I looked at myself and I said, that's me and I'm dead. But if that's me, then who am I? Those are the first thoughts that came to me, incredibly enough. And then I just heard this voice right next to me say, think of your body as a car. And that car has like 5 million miles on it, and there's nothing we could do to fix it anymore. So, you have to now say goodbye to your body. And I thought, wow, I just kind of said it was okay to die. Now I'm standing here because I feel like I'm standing there, right? I don't know what I look like. I don't know what form I'm in, but I know I'm in some form of existence. And I look at myself and something very strange happened. For the first time in my life, I loved and appreciated who I was and who I had been. And I was so grateful for that body, that vessel, for giving me the opportunity to live the life that I had lived. And I think it's something we rarely do. Take that 1 second to say, I'm not flawed. I'm the way I'm supposed to be, because we're always looking for what's wrong with us. We never really appreciate what we have that's good about us. And I started to get these memories of what I call everyday benign things. So somebody smiling, my little brother, me holding his hand, a kiss, simple things, a child looking at you with this amazing love in their eyes, your children. Because those are things that happen every day. Just taking in a breath of air. How insane and how amazing that is, right? So I had this insane appreciation for who I had been and who I was. And then the voice said to me, okay, now it's time for us to move on. And we started walking. Now, I never saw this presence, so I don't know what it was. It felt feminine. And then I could see this huge hole in the ground, like a big black hole. And we're kind of walking right into it, and we walk right into it, and then I feel like I'm falling. And it was a bit of a painful experience because I feel like something was being ripped off of me. And it felt like I was falling forever. And when I finally hit what I would call ground, it kind of ended for a second, and then she kind of said, you got to keep going. And there was another one. And I went into that hole, and I fell, and I kept falling, and I felt this thing just ripping things off of me. When I hit the bottom, the first thing I saw was this mass of color. And the color was just moving, and it had so much life in it that I became instantly amazed. My expectation when I died was that I would encounter nothing and become nothing. Now I'm beginning to see things that were mind-boggling in the sense that this color was alive, was living, and it was moving, and it was talking to me, and it was talking to me like millions of voices. So it sounded like chatter, like shh. But somehow there was some kind of comprehension happening at a level that even there I couldn't really understand. And then they just opened up, and I saw this amazing forest. Now, I grew up in New York City, so that's, to me, quite striking, because I saw these mountains, and I could see the shadow that the clouds make on the mountains, and they were so dark and contrasty. And I could see these wild herds of animals just running, and I found that I was kind of hovering. I saw this amazing vista, and I'm looking up and I'm seeing that mountain, and I'm realizing that I'm flying. So I said, oh my gosh, I'm flying. And I heard this voice just say to me, that's normal here. And then I thought about my children, and this was the only aspect of when I was transitioning that was a bit painful to me. So I said, what's going to happen to my kids? And that boy said to me, don't worry, you could see them from here. And when I heard that, that was like the most amazing thing that I have ever heard. And I said, oh, wow, this is amazing. So it took all my fears away. And then I just started flying, and I started moving over this landscape and looking down and feeling, of course, an amazing sense of peace and calm and tranquility that comes with it, and this deep sense of love. There's no way to really describe it. You've heard that probably 100 times, but there really isn't. But I continued on my journey, and I went over the mountaintops, and I could see snow on the top, and I was like, wow, so amazed. I was really awed more than anything. And then I looked out into the horizon, and I could see the sun. But I saw the sun as if I'm looking through a telescope, and I could see the flares coming out of it. And I felt that this wind that I was feeling was, giving birth there. And it was this warm air that was just coming to me. And that's why I was able to fly. That's what was giving me this lift, this warm air. And I'm thinking all these things, and I look down and I see this amazing cove, and I see a beach, and I see a man in the water. He's like knee deep in the water. And he's got 6 children holding onto his right hand in a string, right, in a line, and 1 child on his left hand. And I said, wow, that's pretty amazing. Let me go down and see what that's all about. So I moved down, and maybe I'm about 10 feet, 15 feet away, and he turns around. That was my father. It was amazing to see him, but what was more amazing was that me and my father had a very, very hard relationship. We used to bump heads tremendously, and he used to drink, and he was quite abusive. And even though I was the 7th of 8 children, I became like my mother's protector. And so we had a lot of clashes, and I don't ever remember saying to my father in life that I love you, or he to me. And his ways were very strict. So we couldn't hug. That wasn't what men do. It was like he had this image of men being like empty, without a soul, without feelings, wow, what an opportunity to say to my father what I could never say to him in life. And so we had this exchange that was very emotional to me. But I understood that he loved me. And I think he understood that I loved him. So it kind of reunited us in a strange way. Not only did we meet there, but from a more spiritual perspective, we became one. Anyway, after all this amazing time, he looks at me and he says, look, you have to go back. And I'm looking at him and I said, no, I don't think so. I really like it here. He's like, no, you got to go back. It's not your time. And I'm looking at him like, no, I want to stay. And then I felt this tugging, like in my chest, but coming from my back. And I started being pulled. And I went back into my body. I opened my eyes, and the doctor that was doing CPR, she kind of got surprised, and she kind of lifted her head back a little. And then I went right back to my father, and I was in this space again. And he's looking at me, he says, no, you really don't get it, you have to come back. And he said, look, this is what we're going to do. So we kind of started to structure a deal in heaven. And he said to me, look, when it's your time, I promise I will come and get you. And I looked at him and I'm thinking, wow, what an amazing deal that is. How could I say no? And so I accepted that. And I went back. When you have your experience of dying, you get this interconnectivity. You feel like you're connected to everything. So that sense of oneness is really profound. When you come back into your physical body again, you feel that sense of separation. So there's something about being in body that makes us feel like we're independent of the rest of the world. It's really soothing, eye-opening, and it's very calming. It's a calming feeling that it permeates through you to know that everything is as it should be, in a sense, right? Everything's working towards a goal, and that goal is well beyond what we may ever know, but it's still doing it.
Powerful story. Great story. I wanted to share that with people. Again, you know, we talk about near death on this program. People are always questioning what comes next, what happens. And I just love the fact that this man was an atheist. He didn't believe any of this. He believed life would end like a light going out, and had a very deep, powerful experience. So I hope that brings you a little bit of peace and understanding, and the fact that the loved ones that have crossed before you have found a beautiful place, and that you'll be reunited and with them again in the future. So thank you very much for sending that story on to me so we could share it today in lieu of Theater of the Mind. All right, Tim, we got another email here.
Okay.
Hey, Dave and Tim. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to read this. This story isn't easy for me to tell at all. I've only told a handful of people who are family, and it feels like it happened just yesterday. I found myself in June of 2013 at the mercy of the hospital's finest in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, who knew how to help individuals with alcohol and drug addiction. And it wasn't the floor that everyone goes to. I decided that my life wasn't worth living anymore, and sat on the edge of my sofa with a bottle of cheap liquor and a full prescription of Xanax. As my head tilted back to throw it all back, I decided to call 911 instead. The operator said, "Are you saying you want to take your life?" My reply was yes. For 9 years, I'd been beating myself up, going in and out of hospitals. Doctors continued to ask me if I thought I might have a problem with alcohol, and every time my reply was the same. Nope. In 1988, I lost my father in a horrible motorcycle accident. His twin brother died just 5 years prior. I was 13 at the time of my father's death, and my life came to a complete stop. My mother remarried my dad's best friend, and I rebelled. I was constantly bullied at school until 9th grade. I fought back and gained some sort of respect for myself. However, death continued to follow me after my dad died. My best friend in high school died, my grandmother died, then my grandfather, then my dad's oldest brother died. I was in the 12th grade when my best friend died of complications from a blood disease. At this point, I was freaking out, thinking the Grim Reaper was chasing me down. I remember going to a few parties, and the illusion that alcohol gave me was that of a bulletproof vest. I found comfort in the feeling of the effect that it gave me. After a failed marriage in 1997, living in San Diego, California, I had no choice to move back in with my parents, who were now in North Carolina. I met my wife a short time after moving here. I met her son, who was a musician, a guitarist, and we formed a great bond, creating music in a metal band. Every show we did, there it was, King Alcohol, always free, a bottle on my amp. It became my best friend. We took it pretty far with the band, releasing a couple of decent LPs, rubbing elbows with big names in the music industry. But in 2004, that too came to an end. Our drummer committed suicide. My drinking picked up after that. I had convinced the band he was holding us back because of his demons. So, of course, when he took his life, a lot of blame fell on me. At least I felt that way. I started experiencing heavy depression and anxiety attacks shortly after. I was given a suggestion by my doctor to go see a therapist, where I was prescribed Xanax. In 2004, I got into a fight in the middle of our rehearsal facility with our new drummer, who told us he wanted to take our sound and add rockabilly. We had created a very heavy sound in the metal realm and worked extremely hard to get where we were, and I blew up. I grabbed my equipment and I left the band. never turning back. But the next 9 years were hell on earth. Never enough booze, constantly running out of my prescriptions. And on June 17th, 2013, I found myself in the back of an ambulance heading to the hospital. I just gave up. While I was in the hospital, I went through the worst detox, shakes, sweats. I was on suicide watch. Again, I just called 911 and I didn't want to live anymore. I spent a considerable amount of time in the hospital, released when the doctors felt I had some sort of recovery. But I was back the very next day. Dave, Tim, this is where it gets rough for me. About a week in, I remember sitting on a sofa in the day room. For some reason, the doctors had thought I was well enough to go home. And it was like a fuse had been lit. And as soon as it went out, I stood up and realized that I had to become 100% sober. I freaked out. I remember running into a room and getting on the floor into a fetal position and screaming, "No, no, no!" I just blamed all my problems on everyone, living or dead, and it was my fault. I looked down and I saw they had given my shoes back to me and saw the shoelaces as a way out. The last thing I remember is seeing a nurse standing in the doorway, completely frightened. I said, "If you're going to stand there, you're going to watch this man die." The next thing I remember, blackness. I was dead. None of this floating above the body stuff, none of the seeing doctors and nurses trying to regain me back from my life of my body. I was somewhere else. I was in complete blackness. I remember being alone in a complete blackness that engulfed everything for eternity. Coldness like I've never felt before. I thought I was alone before. No, this took a whole new look at being alone. Then a light appeared to the left of my peripheral vision. I followed the light until I was in a very brightly lit realm. Timepieces like watches, golden jewels flowed like liquid metal everywhere. I could see colors that were so extraordinary and bright, vivid. I remember looking down. I couldn't see my body, but saw a beautiful running river, grassy knolls, trees, beautiful flowers, and then was shown a grassy knoll with an old bicycle from the early 30s and 40s at the top of the hill. It began to rain, and the bicycle colors began to drip off. And they flowed down the hill until there was nothing left but a rusty old bike. Then I saw it, a face that flowed like liquid gold. At first I thought it was my dad, but this figure took up every bit of the realm I was in. It was a man with a beard. Then to the right was a similar figure, flowing only what I can describe as a flowing liquid platinum, same beard, and took up every bit of the realm. Then to his right was a light so bright I couldn't even look at it. I looked to the far right of the realm and could see a figure pacing back and forth frantically. It was my father. I realized at this point I was being judged. I couldn't hear what was the entities were saying until I heard the golden figure say, "My son, it's not your time. You have unfinished business to do, and you need to go back." I began to fade from one realm back to the next, and then back into my physical body. I began softly hearing my name being called louder and louder until I took a deep breath. My eyes were blurry. I couldn't get a fix on anything for a few minutes. As I was lying on the ground on my side on the floor of the room, I rolled over and saw what I thought was my wife and my stepdad. But as my eyes cleared, it was a nurse and a doctor. The nurse, so comforting, holding my hand. And then I heard the doctor say, "Welcome back, Mr. McNeely. You were dead, but we got you back now. You just died as a result of your addiction. Suicide is not the way out." It took 7 to 10 orderlies to hold me down, and I went into a very deep sleep for about 16 hours. I'd been given a sedative. While I was in the hospital waiting to get out, I was scared, not having any idea what to do. The doctor said, "Look, Mr. McKinley, I'm not letting you out of here unless you go through IOP, Intensive Outpatient Program." Coming out, I made and found myself into an AA meeting. If I make it to September 22nd this year, I'll have 7 years of constant physical and spiritual sobriety. Shortly after my second year sober, I began seeing sparkles above some of the folks in the rooms of AA. I also started seeing bluish purple figures at night. Dave, Tim, I don't take one day for granted. Every morning I drop to my knees and I ask God to keep me sober. I pray my prayer and practice what I've been taught in the rooms of AA. I pay it forward as much as I can. And at the end of the day, I do the exact same before bed. And I thank God for keeping me sober. And here's the kicker. As if all of this wasn't enough, when I was 12, I had a premonition that my father died in a dream. I flew into his room and began to cry, waking him up. Now that's haunted me for years. I've been so blessed these past 6.5 years. God has given me a second chance at life. I caught COVID-19 in January, and by his grace, I recovered getting both shots, and I was able to share this story with you. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Today, I have a great life at 46 years of age. I have a lot to be grateful for. I now sponsor recovering alcoholics and addicts, grateful for every breath I take. I visited my sister after 29 years, and we visited the Whaley House in 2018 with my sister and her family. Included is a picture of my sister and brother at the front door. I'm in the middle. I saw when you were pushed. Now that was messed up. Much love and eternal blessings, and again, thank you for reading my story. And that comes from Michael McGinley. Well, thank you, Michael, for sharing. That's a very powerful story.
Yeah, it is. And God bless you, Michael. And one day at a time, buddy. And congratulations on your sobriety. And right. You will make it to 7, most definitely.
That's right.
Yep.
Congratulations. Thank you for sharing part of your journey with us and allowing us into your lives as well. We appreciate that. A ghost hunter believes spirits are alive in the Midland Hotel after making some interesting discoveries on a recent visit. Kenny Charles has been investigating the paranormal since 2014 with locations ranging from pubs to houses and hotels. It was the latter which recently grabbed his attention in Bradford. He said usually hotels are like, no, it's not haunted, but these guys were like, yeah, when do you want to come? Sharon, the hotel manager, gave me the keys and she said, I can't go down there, pointing to the ballroom. I was getting the spirits to do things. I got a device called a melmeter, and it has to be touched to be activated. And how hard it's touched shows a frequency with the lights and the amount of energy going to it. To see if the spirit could hear me, I did a countdown from 5, and he touched it, and the heat source went off. Actor Sir Henry Irving died at the Midland Hotel in 1905, and Kenny believes his spirit still remains in the City Center building. He said, a medium said, you need to pretend that you are an audience, clapping him, cheering him. I put a laser tripwire down on stage, which has to be walked through to be activated. We all started clapping and cheering, and it went off on point. This carried on for minutes. It shouldn't have been doing that. I've been told it's a female, but looking at the picture, I think it looks like Henry. This was not the only thing Kenny discovered in the hotel. He also has video footage of a friend, Guy Barker, being pulled back spontaneously and a corridor light flashing wildly on command. The Lincoln man had no interest in paranormal activity until he and his housemates were attacked one day in 2011 after meddling with Wicca, pagan witchcraft. They were forced to visit a cathedral to get rid of some pretty nasty things. He said, I thought I was really going crazy. I was waking up in the middle of the night after the most horrific, vivid dreams, and there would be this shadow just standing at the end of my bed. It was bizarre. A knife got thrown at me from a counter, and it landed between my feet. There were coins spinning on tables, banging, knocking on the door with nobody there. I brought a medium in, and he said, you've got 2 very nasty entities in this house. The bishop got rid of 2 nasty things for me, and after that, my life totally changed. The experience made him delve deeper into the unknown and meet his girlfriend through the paranormal. Little did he know that at the time, but she had relatives who were mediums. They taught him the ropes, and now he can look after himself spiritually without any fear. Kenny, who was born in Belfast, added, it absolutely terrified me when it happened to me before, but now I have no fear. I would happily walk into any location and investigate the activity. Kenny created a group called Hidden Activity, which operates all around the UK. Unlike other groups, Kenny refuses to charge for his services. Once he got wind of a potential haunted location through a website called the Paranormal Database, Kenny and his team will go out and pay a visit. He recalls the story of how he freed a girl and her family. We went to a girl's house a few weeks ago, and the family were getting terrorized during the night. They had gotten a few mediums in before to try to sort it, but that had only made it worse. I went there and cleansed the house properly, and they are now sleeping absolutely fine and have not had anything happen since. Good job, Kenny. Way to take care of those people, son. All right, what else have we got going on here? Pontefract. We've got a new story to share from Pontefract. My night being haunted at number 30 East Drive in Pontefract, home of the most violent ghost in Europe, the Black Monk. 30 East Drive has a spooky history. It is said to be the home of the most violent ghost in Europe, known as the Black Monk. The legend started more than 50 years ago when Joe and Jen Pritchard moved into the house with their young family and strange disturbances began to occur. The couple's daughter, Diane, was thrown out of her bed by a mysterious force and later dragged up the stairs by an invisible hand. Joe and Jean also claimed to see the black figure standing over their bed. The legend of the Black Monk, also known as Fred. Black Monk maybe be a little bit a darker, cooler name than Fred. It grew over the decades, inspiring a book and even a 2012 feature film about the ghostly goings-on. So it's not surprising that the house in Pontefract recently piqued the interest of a paranormal investigator, Dean Buckley, and medium Veronica Buckley. The pair spent the night at 30 East Drive checking some of the most haunted spots while holding a vigil. Dean said, "We were at Diane's bedroom door. I knocked and said, 'Is anyone there?' Suddenly the door flew open. I searched the room completely, checked under the bed and checked the walls, but there was nobody in that room." Later in the night, Dean claims the door handle to Diane's room shuddered twice more. Dean continued during a break. "A few of us were chatting in the kitchen when suddenly we heard a growl. The latch of the coal shed started shaking violently. I was the first on the scene with Veronica behind me and the others. I opened it very slowly, and there was nothing there. As I searched the coal shed, the back room felt heavy that night." That sounds creepy. I'd like to visit that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I want to stay there, but I'd definitely like to visit.
No, come on.
No, pretty sure I wouldn't want to visit or stay there. Visit maybe. So here's a story. This came out right when our show began.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it capturing the attention of the world. And I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I grew up just a few miles away from O'Hare Airport. Every UFO sighting needs to be taken with a grain of salt, but every so often a specific shared event starts to tear down the thick walls of doubt. A 2006 UFO incident at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport is one of those events. It's so well known, in fact, that History.com has dubbed it one of the most credible sightings of the modern age. The now famous occurrence shares the spotlight with the 1997 Phoenix Lights, and in the first episode of J.J. Abrams' new Showtime docuseries, UFO. So what exactly happened on the night of November 7th, 2006? Well, here's what we know for sure. United Airlines Flight 446 was preparing to take off for North Carolina from O'Hare International when a dozen airline employees, from a mechanics to pilots, spotted a gray and metallic saucer-like object hovering above gate C-17 at the United Terminal. The unidentified object remained there for several minutes before flying off into the clouds at an unnatural rate of speed that seemed to rip a hole in the heavens. "Did you see a flying disc out by C-17? A United controller by the name of Sue asked a colleague named Dave in the official FAA audio from that day. That's what the pilot and the ramp guys are telling us at C-17. They saw some flying disc above them. You guys been celebrating the holidays early over there or what? Asks an understandably skeptical Dave. You having a Christmas party today? I've not seen anything. Sue, and if I did, I wouldn't admit to it. No, I have not seen any flying disc at C-17 unless you've got a new aircraft you're bringing out today that we don't know about. I know that what I saw and what a lot of other people saw stood out very clearly and definitely was not an Earth aircraft. That's what an unnamed mechanic told the Chicago Tribune in 2007. To fly 7 million light years to O'Hare and then have to turn around and go home because your gate was occupied, that's simply unacceptable, joked O'Hare controller and union official Craig Busick at the time. Despite the assertions of several credible eyewitnesses, the airline and the Federal Aviation Administration declined to look further into the matter, which was written off as a rare weather phenomena known as a fall streak or hole punch cloud, or as we like to call it on this show, bullshit. It's something that occurs when a propeller or jet airplane passes through when you have uniform cloud cover and temperatures right near the freezing point. That's according to Dr. Mark Hammergren, an astronomer at Chicago's Adler Planetarium, explaining to the Chicago Tribune in 2013. They make liquid water droplets freeze and a hazy disk of ice crystals descends from a hole, and it looks like a perfect hole punched in the cloud. Mark Rodiger, director of the Center for UFO Studies scientific director, didn't buy into that explanation, stating it's an unknown object over O'Hare and it's seen by official personnel. And does United or the FAA take it seriously? Of course not. They have zero interest because UFOs can't exist. But how can you not worry about something hovering over an airport after 9/11? This doesn't make sense. In a 2009 episode of History's UFO Hunters, tells us that the investigators for NARCAP, the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena, created an exhaustive 155-page report on the incident, which strongly recommended that the government needed to take a look into the incident. However, no federal action was ever taken. Showtime subscribers with access to the network's official app can stream all 4 episodes of UFO right now. But if you'd prefer to pace yourself, the next 3 episodes will air on a weekly basis for the next 3 Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern. The premiere is currently free to watch on YouTube, Showtime, and Show.com. A co-production between Bad Robot and Zipper Brothers Films, the series boasts the following executive producers: J.J. Abrams, Glenn Zipper, Mark Monroe, Sean Stewart, blah, 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 blah. All the rest of the names I don't know. So check it out. It sounds like an interesting deal, and I can't wait to see this because I'm so fascinated in finding out more about that case. Shortly after that, I think it was Japan, wasn't it, Tim, where the airport was shut down not once, but 2 or 3 times because of a large... Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's bonkers. Real-life Star Wars mystery of a huge space fight above Germany took place 460 years ago. Did thousands of people in the German city of Nuremberg really see spaceships battling it out in the heavens 460 years ago? Or was it a natural phenomena? What the hell looks like a natural phenomena of Star Wars taking place over your country?
A couple of drones going at it.
Yeah, but not 460 years ago.
Time traveling drones, Dave. Come on, let's not rule anything out.
For you, it's still a pretty impressive story, though. For thousands of years, people have looked to the heavens and asked, "Are we alone?" History is littered with examples of strange things happening above our heads, from fiery discs being spotted flying above Egypt in 1440 BC to the invention of the term flying saucers in 1947 after an American pilot described seeing 9 saucer, disc, or pie plate shapes in the sky above Washington. Recently, the Pentagon released an official report into UFOs saying far more data was needed before it could make a ruling on whether or not aliens have been popping to Earth to visit our planet. Had cameras existed in 1561, a celestial mystery could have been solved already after one of the most peculiar UFO sightings in world history. At that time, most residents of the southern German area were more concerned with being called a witch than wondering about aliens, as hundreds of innocent people were being burned at the stake as religious fervor gripped the nation. However, on April 14th, Nuremberg residents awoke to an amazing sight. An alien reported battle was taking place right above their heads. Writings claimed the sky was full of bright lights, spheres, crosses, globes, and tubes attacking each other for hours, with some falling to earth in a mass of flames before burning up on land in a cloud of hellish smoke. Finally, a massive black spear-shaped cross appeared, which blotted out most of the sky, and then fell to earth outside the city in an enormous crash. Presumably, some people went to look at it, but found nothing was ever reported to have been found. The episode was reported in the local paper, complete with a picture of the event, a woodcutting made by local painter and illustrator Hans Glaser. Commentators at the time said the heavenly battle was a sign from God for people to repent for their sins. The episode was largely forgotten for hundreds of years until it was featured in a book as an example of how natural phenomena can be misinterpreted as UFO sightings. Cynics believe the Star Wars event was actually an example of a sundog, an entirely natural phenomena caused by the refraction of sunlight from ice crystals in the atmosphere, which can make it appear though bursts of light are shooting across the sky. They have also pointed out that the woodcut creator was no stranger to fake news, having previously reported on episodes such as blood falling from the sky and other alien sightings. So why are we deeming it fake news? Maybe it was real to them at that time.
Maybe.
And this was not the last time the skies above the town were reportedly an alien battleground. 3 years later, it was reported celestial knights could be seen fighting each other with fiery swords in the sky. Yet again, this was taken as a sign for godless people to repent for their sins. Apart from the occasional report of strange things in the skies, it was not until after World War II that UFO fever finally really broke out. With an advent of rocket technology and Cold War fever gripping the USA, reports flooded in of strange objects in the sky. One of the most famous UFO mysteries remains the Roswell incident, which we don't need to cover again because we've covered it ad nauseum on the show. But despite the authorities saying the wreckage was part of a weather balloon and the dummies were part of a study into improving ways pilots could eject from aircraft, some people still believe the U.S. government is carrying out a cover-up. Whatever the truth is, it seems unlikely the Nuremberg mystery will remain just that, a mystery. Yeah, 460 years ago, I've seen video of sundog stuff. I don't see how they can just roll this into that. It sounds too unlikely. But again, it would have been fascinating to see it happen.
It's a stretch, yeah.
Yeah. 40 years ago, Robert Taylor said he was abducted by aliens during a walk in the woods, sparking an actual police investigation. It is still considered by some as the most respected UFO claim. When Robert Taylor said he saw an alien spaceship in the woods near a Scottish town 40 years ago, it made headlines all over the world. The famous incident to this day is the only reported UFO sighting in the UK that has been investigated by the police. Detectives treated the rips sustained to Mr. Taylor's trousers as evidence of an assault, but never managed to work out what actually happened to him. Mr. Taylor, a forester, claims that he saw a 30-foot-high dome-shaped object in a clearing in the forest near the Livingston on the 9th of November in 1979. In his testimony to the police, he stated that two spiked spheres rolled out towards him and grabbed onto either side of his legs before he eventually passed out. The 61-year-old said he woke up in a disheveled and shaken state some 20 minutes later. Mr. Taylor, who passed away in 2007, was a respected war hero and well known around his area as a teetotaling churchgoer. Now, reports say that no one doubted that his sincerity in what he had believed to have been and what he had seen, and he never deviated from the story for the rest of his life. The elderly man said he had been working alone, checking fences and gates at the Detchmont Woods at 10:30 when he spotted a spaceship in the clearing. After the spiked arms slinked out to grab him, all he could remember was an intense smell of burning. When he came back around, he was alone in the clearing, apart from a deep, regular pattern of marks on the ground. Upon arriving home, he told his wife, Mary, that he had been attacked by a spaceship thing. Due to Mr. Taylor being in such a disheveled state, the police were called and officers were suddenly inquiring as to an assault on a 61-year-old forester by a spaceship thing. Detective Con Ian Wark, the crime scene investigator, says he arrived at the clearing to find a large gathering of officers already there. He reportedly told the BBC that he, too, saw strange marks on the ground, about 32 holes, all 3.5 inches in diameter, similar to those made by caterpillar tracks fitted on bulldozers. After examining each piece of machinery they had up there, we found nothing that matched it, he said. The officer went to Mr. Taylor's employee, Livingston Development Corporation, to see if they had anything that could make the pattern. After examining every piece of machinery they had up there, they also did not find anything that was even a close match, he said. These marks just arrived, Detective Conwark said. They did not come from anywhere or go anywhere. They just arrived as though a helicopter or something had landed from the sky. A police report from the time said that the marks on the ground indicated an object of several tons had stood there, but there was nothing to show that it had been driven or towed away. P.C. William Douglas wrote, There appeared to be no rational explanation for these marks. Mr. Taylor's ripped trousers were sent in for forensic examination, but this was before DNA analysis was super advanced, so analysis concentrated on how the damage had been done. Police forensics said that they were damaged by something hooking them and moving up, fitting Mr. Taylor's story. Many theories surrounding what actually happened to Mr. Taylor have been thrown around, with everything from black ball lightning to hallucinatory berries. Some people have speculated if Mr. Taylor had an epileptic seizure, but there was no evidence to suggest this at the time. Detective Con Wark said he could believe the theory of the fit, but asked, what about the marks on the ground? 40 years on, the incident remains one of the most polarizing UFO sightings in all of history. And that's it for this week, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's program. And if you have a story to share, you can email them to me, dave@darknessradio.com. We will read them on an upcoming episode of the program. If you'd like to see any of those news stories, the pictures, the videos, anything that's been a part of those, go to darknessradio.com, click on the news tab. You'll find the information there. For Tim Dennis, I'm Dave Schrader. That's it for today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I hope you will tune in and spend some time with us. We have an interesting show, The Ghosts of Greystone Manor with Cleet Keith, here on the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio.